Wait. I think we've established that kaka and tuki don't work.
Right. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Today is Tuesday, which means my wife works from the office, which means that you and I can continue our sordid love affair. So today I'm actually going to give you some content with content in it. Recording my screen. I'm going to take you through a very quick, I say very quick, who am I kidding? It's me. I'm going to take you through a battle report of a 3,000 point tournament that I played in last weekend. Forgive me, by the way, if the audio sounds terrible. I'm recording with the microphone on my laptop because I don't own another microphone. If it becomes a persistent issue, I might end up investing in one. Let's see how it goes. Anyway, I was playing my Highborn elves. I never wrote so many army lists for a tournament before. I wrote, I think, 30 different army lists from 5 different books before finally deciding, with 27 minutes until submission, to play something completely different and quirky with the aid of my protege, Mr. Thomas Jacobs from Belgium. We cooked up this silly little number here. And the idea was basically just to play stuff that people weren't really expecting, and just have some fun with quirky choices like a commander on a great eagle, a big unit of eagles, one lion chariot, a frost phoenix, archers. These are all like very non-meta choices that I think people wouldn't be expecting. But at the same time, like a friend of mine commented, this is like a one of everything list. Like you've got one unit of spears, or there's this. How does it even work? And it's because of the unit variety that it does work. Cosmology as well, I think, is just a really flexible lore, which is what 3K is all about. So I don't have the pictures saved, but I actually did a little bit of brainstorming about the principles of 3,000 point games. And one of the big things I identified was that we're playing on 5 foot by 4 foot tables. We chopped off 1 foot off the end. And one of the things I identified was that I thought the ability to play and react well all across the board. So relatively speaking, right, we're playing with 2/3 the armies, but on 5/6 of the board. So in my mind, relatively speaking, the boards were bigger. So this is why High Elves stuck out as a really obvious choice to me, because they can shoot really far, which your shooting units are going to be less punishable because there's going to be more dead space, more no man's land on the board. And the other thing was that they're one of the best armies in the game at fleeing and rallying and coming back in for some more because of the cold-blooded leadership. So I kind of wanted, and this is another thing, I wanted to play all across the board, so I didn't really feel like a BSB was necessary, which is the biggest challenge at 3K list building, trying to get a general, a magic phase, and a BSB in and solve this whole discipline problem. So apart from that, probably everything else on here makes sense to you. So without further ado, let me jump into my games. So for the first game, I was drawn against a fellow by the name of Alex Schubert. He's one of the Masters level players from Sydney. About 6 or 7 players from Sydney came up to play in this event with us in Brisbane, which was really amazing because including Alex, there's a few of them that I've never played against before. So it was a nice opportunity to get to see them. Plus, it's just really nice for our tournament scene. We're very fortunate in that we're not in crazy amounts of lockdown here, apart from the occasional outbreak. So being able to have these guys come up and cross the border, the state border to Queensland, and get to play these games was really lovely. So without further ado, he was playing an Ogre Kingdoms list with 2 units of Yetis, unit of Bombardiers with a Pyro Firebelly Adept, 2 Kitty Cats, and a big bus of 2 units of Iron Guts Bruisers. You will forgive me, I still use the old terminology. If you can't deal with that, this is your stop. And then we had a big unit of Tribesmen with the BSB inside. So quite a fighty list with like 1, 2, 3, 5, 3 really capable combat units and 2 decent-ish ones. plus the shooting brick. So I think I want to roll for... by the way, big factor here, we're playing Capture the Flags in Frontline Clash. So I won the roll for sides, and my reasoning was I didn't want him to have a ruins and a field on the same side to hide from my bolt throwers in. This impassable, I wasn't really sure if this was going to be friend or foe to whoever got this side, but I thought just the volume of cover on this side alone made it quite an easy pick. So Alex did not elect to drop for the first turn. He just put this central unit of bruisers down, and I think this was a first really big error from him, and one that let me grab the initiative straight away. Because we're playing Capture the Flags, these guys have just got, crosshairs on their foreheads. So as soon as he put these down, I just went, I'm going to drop for first turn. I don't really care where you put anything else because my army's fast enough that I can react. So I just put the archers within 30, my mage and spearmen able to go up within 24 to hit them with the magic missile, and my bolt throwers with clear lines of fire to them. And then I kind of just put my fast stuff on the flanks, all my scoring in the middle so I could run around and try and get away somehow. And the idea was basically just to try to collapse one side, hold them off on the other, and just shoot a win out of the mission and see what developed from there. So, by the way, just to rectify this, I think he could have... I think he forgot the mission when he was putting this unit down. If he just puts it like 4 inches to the left, he doesn't care about being in the forest. He's not steadfast anyway, right? He gets -1 to hit against all my shooting. There's no real disadvantage to starting the forest. He's still in the same position virtually. As it was, the Yetis just jumped out of the forest anyway, so it's not like they were even occupying that spot. But I don't know, maybe I just thought it was a shame from his point of view, like the only piece of cover on his entire deployment zone, and there's nothing starting in it. So I only managed to kill 1 ogre in the first shooting phase, but didn't really worry me. I was able to put some pressure on this side, cause these trappers to flee with my eagle hero. My Chariot and Frosty, I think I'd run some pre-game math that if these two charge some Yetis together and I get 1 buff in, then the unit just gets exploded. So these guys were basically just daring him to come down here. Alex had a big problem here, I thought, which was the Frosty is quite durable to not only his magic, but the lead belchers as well. So my main concern was these guys getting 2 rounds of fire against my Highborn Lancers, because just like the Iron Guts are quite vulnerable, my Lancers are also, in fact, all my units are quite vulnerable in the mission. So this was his second big mistake, in my view, putting these Bombardiers out behind this corner. I managed to deny them any shots in turn 1, and then in turn 2, do I have a picture of this? Nope. In turn 2, I basically just rushed on them with everything. Like the Phoenix and the Chariot blew up the Yetis. I think I put -1 to hit on the Bombardiers with my Cosmo Mage. I think maybe I shot 1 off as well, because at this point I was just about reducing the shots coming back. But basically I killed these Yetis. The Chariot went off the board. He put a full magic and shooting face into the Phoenix, did like maybe a wound, because I think I might have had Hereditary up. And then the Phoenix just charged and ate the Bombardiers with the Pyromancy because he failed his rerollable steadfast. So that was this entire flank gone. Meanwhile, my flying units over here, the Griffon was basically zoning the world. You can see even the Yetis who vanguarded out of the forest went back into the forest. My Eagles found a little blind spot up here, close to where Alex's tape measure is. By the way, I'm sharing my screen. I hope you can see my mouse pointer. Otherwise, I'm just like... Anyway, we'll find that out in the post-recording. So my Eagles found a blind spot up here beside the forest and managed to then threaten the flank of his whole line. Things got quite messy in the middle here. He decided to go for the push, and I decided to countercharge him with my my Great Eagles and my Eagle Hero into the unit of 3 bruisers. I had a front and a flank, and that's like 15, 17 attacks, and I killed not even 1 Iron Gut. So we actually drew combat, and then he was able to pile in with a whole bunch of counter charges. And then I was able to pile in with a bunch of counter charges, and it just became a big old traffic jam, which ended up, I think I lost my Eagle hero and my Eagles, but I managed to. I think I took everything in the end. I think at the end of this game he had these 4 Scrappling Trappers left alive. So I think the mission was in my favor. I think the matchup was probably in my favor as well. When these bolt throwers are deployed this deep, and you know how to keep the Yetis out, they just end up doing immense damage over the course of the game. So moving on to my second round, I got to play against Dan Stark, who's one of the best painters going around our scene, and he's just rolled out a lovely new Dread Elf army. Now, he'd also crushed someone in the first game 20-0, so I think we were on the second highest table because there were 2 other people who'd also won 20 and had higher victory points than us. So Dan, as you can see, has a very, very, very small army, even cutting corners like not taking a BSB. Like he had hidden behind his hand here, he's got his what are they called? The Oracle, the Sorceress on a Pegasus with the Destiny's Call, and then he had the Divination Oracle, Divination Temple Legate inside the Militants, a unit of Spearmen with the Altar, Executioners, 2 Chariots, and a unit of Harpies. And I think I don't know if we traded 1 deployment each. I think maybe we traded 1 deployment each, or was it? No, it was counter thrust. So this Chariot stuck out to create a little bit of a zone. I stuck my Eagles out here to create a bit of a zone. We traded back and forth, and then he just decided, the other elves have shooting, and I don't have shooting, so I should probably try to not get shot as much. How do I feel about table size here? Bit of a tricky one. I think this is a really good example of my my pre-tournament theory in action. Like, look how big this board is, and look how tiny Dan's army is. Dan's army is basically 3 units. These Chariots are really slow. 3 units going down like what's that? Not even 2 foot of the board. So all of this board space, like I don't think any model ever went in this quarter of the board. And you can see here, he's just going to spend days chasing me. So my idea here was basically to just delay this side. The Spearmen can actually get into a little bit of trouble here because they're fairly outnumbered, but they do have agility 7 when people charge against them. So normally what you do is someone pushes at you, you shoot the crap out of that thing, and then you just receive the charge with the Spearmen, and then they're taking like another 20 attacks before they get to go. So even if something like 7 or 8 Executioners are still alive, then you can normally poke them to death with the spears as well. So the flyers and we're playing King of the Hill, by the way. So that was a big factor in my deployment here as well, because and Dan's, I imagine, because I made him capture this water. So all 3 of his scorers obviously going straight for the water, hoping someone survives. Doesn't really care if there's any troops there to kill. While I had to capture the hill, which is obviously under his army. So I kind of knew from the start that I would either have to get really sneaky and sneak these lancers around the back, or just completely wipe him out and then grab the hill with something at the end. So I just kind of run you through the memorable moments of the game. He pushed up. You'll notice I don't have a Frost Phoenix anymore. So his push went to here, and there was a crazy, awesome, profitable opportunity, I thought, where because of the base sizes, my Frost Phoenix had basically an auto charge into this altar unit. The altar unit had no buffs on. It had no character inside except the altar. And because of the base sizes, I'm only going to touch 2 Spearmen and the altar. So that's 6 attacks from Spearmen, 9 attacks from the altar, who are only strength 4 with no buffs. So the other thing with no buffs, he's got no BSB. He's got no divination, leadership support, no nothing. So first thing is he's got to take a terror check on leadership 9, 2 dice. If he fails that, he's going all the way back to his deployment zone. Okay, so he passes that. So in goes the bird. Now he's got a fear check on leadership 8 with no reroll. And if he fails that, then I'm -1 to hit. In terms of static res, okay, he's got 3 ranks and a banner, but I've got a charge. So he's winning by 3 before we strike. And I've got 4 attacks sitting on 3s and a Thunderstomp. So we're talking probably like 5-ish dead elves. So I'm thinking, okay, And then if I win combat, which, as I've just described, I think is not entirely outside the realms of possibility because he's not buffed. He's only got 6 spearmen poking me. If I win combat, then he's got a leadership 8 break check with no reroll. And if he fails that, I don't know if you can see here, but there's a little sorceress on a Pegasus behind there. So this is like a 600-point unit and a 500-point wizard that has a lot of different opportunities for things to go wrong. And my Phoenix is worth 300 points and might not even permanently die. He might just come back. So I thought for a turn 1 charge to potentially get like 1,100 points, and even if the Phoenix dies, it should survive, I think, 2 rounds, which means that he's killing like half of these spearmen who he needs later for scoring anyway. So this was just a no-brainer in my book. So I went for it, and of course, 6 spearmen did like 5 wounds before I attacked, and I'm like, okay, if you're going to be like that. And Dan looked at me like it was perfectly normal and average. I mean, admittedly, I kind of, maybe I miscalculated how the combination of the +1 to wound and the -1 resilience from the altar, but it was still just absurd. Like, he just obliterated the Phoenix before it got to stomp in one phase, and I killed like 2 spearmen or something. It was just very, 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 very silly, but I would do it again anyway. So fortunately, the Phoenix did actually rebirth, which is why I've got this little fluoro marker down here, and would come back on and then fly around a bit. Meanwhile, my Eagle managed to get out of line of sight of his chariots here because he was a little bit sloppy, and all the other staff basically just sat there and shot the absolute crap out of his Temple militants because Blades of Darag are no good if you're dead. And basically, it was just we had some complications with these chariots where my flyers kind of went all in, and then I was too successful where I couldn't engineer. Anyway, I lost my Eagle hero to some return charges, but my Griffon managed to clean up both chariots after that. The Lion chariot charged into 5. So I think there were like 9 executioners left, and my Lion chariot just went for it. And the 4 executioners probably rolled 4 hits, 4 wounds, and just took it off. So I lost my Lion chariot, but as you can see, the Phoenix came back, and I even managed to heal a wound on it, so he's not getting any points for it. Everything else just basically died. I think the executioners charged in and killed the Phoenix simultaneously as the Phoenix killed them, so that was kind of amusing. But this unit on the right here just stood no chance, just took all of my archers and all of my bolt throwers. I mean, the militants were the first to go, and then these guys just took everything. And my Lancers did manage to sneak around. He tried to save the objective by putting his Sorceress in front of them, but and even though I charged the Sorceress and the Pegasus killed 2 knights on the turn I charged, I still managed to get them. And at the end, the only thing he had left was the altar. So another very successful game. It sounds kind of oversimplified, but I have played against Dread Elves a lot, and I do consider them to be one of my favorite matchups, given my playstyle is all about high mobility and consistent damage output, which the Dread Elves, they just, I don't know. Well, for me, the weakest units in the game are ones which are slow with low armor and low resilience, and that's the whole Dread Elf book. So for me, this is an army I'm pretty much always happy to see across the table. Doesn't matter what the build is. I just think they've got a lot of weaknesses that, if you know how to play against them, are quite exploitable. So for my third game, I ended up in a mirror match against the one and only Jamie Payne. So Jamie, for those who don't know, is the Australian high-off ETC player. He's been to a number of ETCs over the years, and he's got a very, very aggressive play style. Sometimes even goes for very compromised type lists, by which I mean he'll make very obvious sacrifices and make them very one-dimensional. The obvious benefit there is it's very, very good at one thing, namely running over the top of people. So in this case, he'd chosen to go on with no magic, no shooting approach. So he had a general on a Griffon, a BSB on a Griffon, and two Lion chariots, 2 Reaver chariots, big unit of Eagles like I have, big unit of Reavers. In the previous game, I saw him conga line 9 Reavers across the entire enemy army in turn 1. But anyway, he managed to... So we've got the Hat and Bowl deployment here, attacker defender, and he obviously takes the big middle because in general it's just a bit nicer to play with this big center. You got more flexibility moving out in the first turn. And of course, he got the side with all the cover on it. I got a bloody impassable and water, which helped me not at all. Whereas he's got a field and the hill and the forest. So that was a no-brainer. So I debated whether or not I should drop for first turn here. And in the end, I decided that it was basically mandatory because if you can imagine Jamie's entire army in this front box here, and then the whole thing, like say again, the Reavers decide to conga line all my stuff, which would block in the Chariot and my Lancers. And then he's got 1, 2, 3 flyers, like probably mere inches away from me. The Chariot's already halfway across the board. And then he's got the Lancers and the Reaver Chariots. So I decided that was giving him the best table side with the best deployment zone, and the first turn would just be a recipe for disaster. So I went for... We're playing Secure Target. This was one, and this other orange one up here was the second one. So this objective looked kind of drawish to me. I found it pretty unlikely that my Lancers would be able to sneak through. Even before he's got his army down here, I knew that there would be something, whether it's just a Griffon or a unit of Knights. It would be pretty unlikely for 5 Lancers to be able to steal this marker. But given this is kind of like a head-on car crash matchup, I just wanted to put it in the middle of the board, make him come for me, and basically I'll just try and kill him, and hopefully I've got something left to grab the mission at the end. So you can see all my scoring units are within grab distance without being too clustered together, because then he can just completely concentrate and explode them. And then my fast stuff is out on the flanks, so I can converge in based on where he deployed. You can see just out of shot here, I've got my bolt thrower poking out. He went in the extreme corner. And the reason I did that rather than having him more central was I just didn't like this impassable. I thought this was just too good a staging point for his flyers to jump in and then roll down the line. I've seen Jamie is the original player of that annoying 5 Griffon list, which went around on UB for a couple months before it got ban-hammered. So I've seen it in action a few times, even if I haven't played against it. And I just know these Griffons, once they get in annoying positions, are just a nightmare to get rid of. So my prime directive here was just to keep him off me for as long as I could and see what I can pick up with shooting, and maybe try and grab the objective at the end. Which the double-edged sword here is, of course, that he's got the second turn to grab the objective at the last minute. So he surprised me with his deployment. I think he outsmarted himself a bit here. He went all in the corner, and obviously my thinking on his deployment is he was trying to use this hill as a staging point, basically get all his stuff to behind here while minimizing the damage he's taking early on. Like this bolt thrower had no shot, the archers had no shot, so I had 1 bolt thrower to shoot some eagles in the first turn, basically. And then once he gets all his stuff behind this hill, then he can just jump out with like 6 or 8 threats at once and just completely overwhelm my tiny list. So that actually, my view on his game plan actually influenced a lot my own actions here. The first thing of which was when he vanguarded his Reavers to here, offering my Eagles a charge. I was very 50-50 on this. The Eagles obviously die. If I make the charge, if I fail the charge, I obviously die because there's just a million things there to kill them. Even if I make the charge, it's kind of dicey if I break the Reavers or not. Like, they've got 9 wounds, I've only got 10 attacks. He gets to go at the same time as me with his riders, and all he has to do is stick probably like a leadership 6 break check, and then everything comes in and murders me. But what I wanted to do was create like a traffic jam. Do I have a picture of this? Yeah, so my Eagles went in, and I surprised Jamie by chucking... We got probably a 9-5 magic phase in the first turn, and he put everything out of spell range. I couldn't get favor in. The only thing I could get in range was Perception of Strength to my Eagles. Couldn't even get it to his unit. And I surprised Jamie a bit by 5 dicing with my Mage, who's a general, in the first turn. And that gave my Eagles strength 5, and I actually managed to not only beat the Reavers, but break them and run them down. And now I've got my unit of Eagles into his Griffon general in the first turn. And here's where I think Jamie made another little mistake, which I don't know if he's kind of forced to do it at this point, but basically he piled as much stuff as he could into this Eagle unit. So he charged in these Lancers with his BSB, he charged in the Lion Chariot, charged in the other Griffon, and he charged in these Lancers into the flank. And obviously completely obliterated the Eagles, but how, like, just have a look at the position here. Like, I've got my Eagle hero, I've got my Lancers, I've got my Spearmen, and I've got my Griffon, plus I've got the Phoenix and this Chariot. Like, I'm creating the old semicircle of death here. Can any of these units that he's put into this cluster, actually, cluster's not the word I wanted to say, it's a cluster plus something else. Can any of these units really overrun or move meaningfully? And the answer is no, not really, because anything that overruns is going to end up in charge range of something else. So he basically just ended up sitting here in this big box after killing the Eagles for fear of my counter charges. And for me, what that did was, okay, this Griffon only moved about 7 inches instead of coming up here on the flank. These Lancers, I went to the middle instead of going for the flanking maneuver. So this, and again, even the Lion Chariot, I got some free dangerous terrain tests on it, and it just ended up stuck here. And everything in one space is kind of like the opposite of how Jamie's list wants to play. So for me, I was just in love with the position already. And I decided, actually, I don't know if this was the right approach, but I thought it was an interesting one to try. I decided just to keep this idea of throwing resources at him to slow him down going. So the next thing I charged in was my Griffon hero, and I charged my Griffon hero into his Lancers with his BSB. And my idea here, there was no counter charges for 1 turn. So I basically had 3 rounds of combat, 2 after I killed the champion, to try to assassinate his BSB, who only had, I think, a 1-up armor save and a 6-up Aegis. So I did that and actually made it. I think it was maybe a 16. Oh, let's look at the tape. Oh, that's 12, 13. I think it was around a 16. My Lion Chariot had a long charge as well and didn't make it. No, that's a lie. The Lion Chariot moved around the ruins. The Frost Phoenix had a long charge and didn't make it. So I had the opportunity just to go really big with the Frosty in there as well. But I ended up getting the Griffon in. He had no counter charges. The Griffon killed his champion. He did a couple of wounds to the Griffon because he had Kingslayer on his BSB. But eventually the Griffon did actually kill his BSB before being murdered by one of his Griffons, because then he's got the charge. But again, the same thing. I basically traded the Griffon in equal points for his BSB, and that's another Griffon that spent 1 turn repositioning, then 1 turn charging. So his general didn't move turn 1, moved to here in turn 2, and then charged in turn 3 and did nothing turn 4. So I'm basically just trading resources for time in a matchup where he's got like 8 combat units, any of which can pretty much beat mine individually. Meanwhile, my shooting is like starting to chip away these guys. My other flyers are stopping his units from advancing out, and the objective is looking very, very drawn. So in turn 3 as well, he spent a long time repositioning about 5 different units to make sure that this Eagle hero couldn't fly out from behind the hill. Have we got a picture of that? No. Fly out from behind the hill and find a landing spot here to threaten his Swordmasters, who were claiming this objective marker. He managed to do that by about a mil. We had to get an external ruling because it was so close. So eventually things started to get a little bit more messy. I decided to charge my Frost Phoenix into his Griffon general as well in the last closes of the game. Again, just to pin it down. And I think even in 3 rounds of combat, his Griffon shouldn't kill the Phoenix. Of course, he just rolled like crazy and killed in 2. My Lancers did the same thing. They flank charged the other Griffon and just pinned it for 2 turns. So in the end, we actually traded almost exactly on points, and we got 1 objective marker each. So it was a really interesting tactical game with heaps of measuring. Like, you can only see 1 arc marker on here, but I think About 15 minutes later, there were all of these sticks and stuff in play. It was very interesting. Jamie's always really, really awesome to play against. The only problem is we end up playing such a tactical game that they're really slow. So we vowed together to work on that for the future games. But it finished in a 10-10, which I guess I was kind of okay with, given I was already, I think, 5 points ahead of Jamie going into this game after my 2 big wins. And this is a highly unstable matchup. So for me to be able to just keep throwing, stuff at him and slowing him down while shooting away and getting a safe 10 at the end, I think if we played one more turn, I have the chance to actually make that maybe an 11-13 without too much risk as well. So, but good game. So the following morning, that's a pretty blurry picture, just like the old days, huh? The following morning, I played against Warriors, the Dark Gods player. What's the next picture? Okay, there we go. Now I can tell the story in context, knowing what's coming. I played against Warriors, the Dark Gods player, and this is the Dawn Assault, where you lose a flank. You can see he hasn't got a flank over here, and I don't have a flank with the building here. What did he have here? The Doom Bus with the Doom Lord in the Forsworn, a unit of Knights, Chimera, some Doggies, a big block of Warriors with Parry, Feldrak and the Alchemy Master, 3 Feldraks with Halberds, and some Flayers. So my opponent had been getting a couple of big wins and catching me up on the leaderboard. So going into this game, I was on 50 out of 60, and I don't remember how many points ahead of the other boys I was, honestly, but I was still probably 5 ahead of Jamie, and I think Chris, this gentleman here, had got a big win against someone and jumped up to second position overnight. So for me, this looked like a pretty good matchup. Like these central blocks are really slow, and my army can disperse quite well. All this, like the Flayers, the Dogs, even the Chimera, are just going to be dead in the first 2 or 3 turns if I'm paying attention. The Knight, for me, the really complicated thing to deal with was obviously the Spike Shield Forsworn with the Doom Lord, who just bitch slaps all my characters, and the Feldraks, who have hatred against half my army. So these were really quite complex. The Knights, he had great weapons on his Knights, which is a really big deal for me because they're 1 worse armor save and they go last. So anyway, he, I think, also dropped for first turn, pretty much pushed up maximum distance with everything, and proceeded to blow his wizard up on the second spell of the game. The Flayers ended up here in the middle of the board, and I decided not to shoot them because the Chimera just looked too annoying. So I actually ended up shooting the Chimera to death instead and just leaving the Flayers alone. I did block the Flayers charge with my Frost Phoenix though, so that at least he couldn't just clean up whatever he wanted. My Griffon chased away the Doggies, and we kind of ended up in a little bit of a standoff here in the middle. What did end up happening was the Knights and my Spearmen ended up fighting, and my Spearman had +1 strength on. I charged him. That's right, I charged him. So I had 20 attacks going first with strength 4 AP2, and I think I killed a Knight. So this became a really big problem and made the game quite exciting because the Knights, carved up 9 Spearmen or something in return. And then the Forsworn, who were now in the middle of the table, had a flank charge on my Spearman. I got very, very lucky in that he missed the pursuit move into the bolt thrower in his turn, because that would have then let him kill that in my turn and just charge into the back of almost anything. Well, I say almost anything, the archers, which were immediately now sprinting for the middle of the table to try to get away from these 2 units over here. So the Griffon did manage to come back and clean up the Knights. And meanwhile, my Frosty, my Lion Chariot, and my Eagle Hero teamed up and actually killed the Warriors. Another funny dice moment though, where the Frosties fighting against the Warriors with the spiked shields, right? And he's got 12 attacks from Strength 4 Warriors, and in the first round of combat, he deals 6 wounds to the Phoenix and treats it like it's a normal thing. And I'm like, pretty sure that's not average, by the way. I did manage to make one save, and I had favor up, so the Frost Sphinx thankfully survived on one wound, and then I think it eventually died, but yeah, it was still kind of traumatic for me, more than it should have been. So the Flayers obviously got shot to death. The Feldrax and I ended up in a bit of a standoff where we were trying to hide from each other behind this hill. Eventually, they took the bait and tried to support the Warriors' combat, which let my Lancers, my Eagles, get behind them. And I think I ended up in a quadruple charge against the Feldrax and just exploded them with all my... Like, hatred against Fly is great, but if you're dead, then you don't get to use it. So there was that. And I ended up with my Mage and my Archers running around like crazy, trying not to be charged by his Forsworn, while my single remaining Bolt Thrower was trying to snipe his Doomlord out of the unit. Managed to reduce him to 2 wounds, but didn't quite get him in the end. So managed to kill everything except for the Doomlord and the Forsworn, losing my Spearman, 1 Bolt Thrower, and I think half the Phoenix and half the Lion Chariot. So, because the Phoenix once again rebirthed. So, and I managed to win the objective in the end with some sneaky moves. So this finished in an 18-2 to me, and at this point I was very confident about my chances to win the event. I just had one more. Oh, sorry. I didn't skip, but here you go. You can sort of see what I was describing before with these guys breaking through. My Eagle, and the guy on the Eagle rocked here. Like, the paired weapons just didn't care. The paired weapons and AP3 from Hero's Heart just munched through this Spike Shield unit. Like, no parry, almost no armor, just die. Just turn after turn after turn. And the Frosty valiantly giving its life to soak up most of the return attacks. Like, he just rolled like a boss. So for 280 points, this Eagle hero did really marvelously here. I enjoyed him a lot. So my final game was against none other than Hugo. Hugo's also from Team Australia, and he's rocking Demon Legions at the moment. He and Jamie had a very, very bloody game the day before, and I knew this is a very small tournament, right? It's like 22 people. And just like at a Masters event, I'm used to playing this climate now because we've got quite a small scene here in Australia. So when you have a small event like this, it's you kind of always got to expect to play against the other top players. And just on army list, I knew that Hugo was going to be on the top tables. I thought his list was really smart. He had the double Harbinger in this block of Lemurs here. These are Brazen Beasts. Imps with the double magic missile, the hereditary and the magic missile banner, 2 horde threshers with the 6-inch vanguard, which I thought was really cute and also really annoying, and a blazing glory, and this guy here who was probably my biggest nightmare of all. This is the Engine of Damnation Hope Harvester, and I didn't even think about this when I was writing my demon list, but man, this guy is hard to kill at 3,000 points. We had another rule at this event, which was you can't have more than 500 points in any single unit or character. So what have you got that's going to be able to take down this 7-wound, res 6, armored and Aegis monster that can also shoot you with a volley gun while he's running around? So this was a really smart pick by Hugo, I thought. I don't know how it performed for him in his other games, but I was looking at it and going, well, I haven't got much to deal with that. Then, like the Threshing Engine with the 22-inch charge range, he took a really interesting approach to this game, I thought, and took all of the magic missiles. I didn't realize quite how blasty his list could be. He had Evocation and Thaumaturgy. So I was expecting the usual reroll to hit, reroll to wound, smite the Unbeliever, maybe the breath weapon. But he actually took Hasten the Hour, which was a massive pain in the ass. My poor Lancers were measuring that distance to that guy every turn. Then he took Hand of Heaven, Breath Weapon, Spectral Blades, and then the 2 magic missiles from the Horrors as well. It was quite a hectic magic phase, to be honest. I was unpleasantly surprised. So we're playing Spoils of War with the 3 objectives, which I thought was really nice to play at 3K as well. And he deployed pretty much in his marching columns. So we both started from this right table edge. I'm always in a debate if it's the right choice to start from the same side as your opponent or to add a little bit of mystery by going from the other side. So most people hate marching columns. I think it's the most interesting deployment to play with by far. So I always enjoy the mind games. But Hugo, I think, deployed almost exactly as I was expecting. I managed to pick the sides and gave him this one with the two ugly impassables on it. So I didn't have to deal with that crap. Even though I don't care that much, like my flyers can jump over the top, it's still like, look at the distance here. This thing is halfway up the table, this marker, right? And to get there, one person has a completely open run. The other person has to go around a freaking impassable and expose themselves. So I didn't want any end of that. So, and then in the middle, your deployment is basically telegraphed because you can't advance except in this channel. So, I mean, look at my units. I've got these guys here. That it can go everywhere. If I was here, what am I like? My bolt throwers line of sight is going to be terrible. It's going to be blocked by the hill. I know this table side looked like a disaster to me, so I was very happy to win the roll, even knowing that he was probably going to drop for first turn. So he did drop for first turn, and to my surprise, okay, that's far too into the game. To my surprise, he didn't really advance that much. My Frosty and my Griffon just controlled a huge amount of space here. This guy over here didn't come up very far either with the Griffon, with the Eagle hero babysitting the Spearman. If anyone's about to tell me you're violating the 1 inch rule on your Eagle, actually no, he's joined to the Spearman. Thank you very much. So I'm actually really happy with my deployment here. I managed to get the Lion Chariot opposite the Blazing Glory. Having all the flyers around the forest is maybe kind of suspect, but I wanted stuff to... This is basically because it's marching columns. I decided to go for mobile stuff out here just to try to... I think it's really unwise to deploy your most static stuff first in marching columns because it just gives the opponent too much counterplay. So the game started off with a bang, with the Frosty once again being the controversial item and dying to a single Hand of Heaven spell. I think Hugo rolled like 6 strength 7 hits and I didn't make any ward saves and it just died. And then the Lancers even panicked and ran back here, thankfully rallying. Otherwise, that would have just been an absolute disaster. So this was actually one of my biggest problems with the list. With my list was the panic for stuff dying. You can kind of mitigate it a little bit with the single models. Like you'll see in this next photo here, these guys are very clearly more than 6 away from each other. But there are some situations where you just can't avoid it. No, they probably are within 6, but like here, for example, this bolt thrower, I realized after deployment, if Hugo just goes for me and kills this bolt thrower, look at all these panic tests that I've got to take. Like that's my mage in a unit of archers. That's just a disaster waiting to happen. So thankfully, I only lost the Frost Phoenix in the first turn, and in the second turn, I got a little bit creative and surprised him. I used Touch the Heart and sniped the Imp champion so that there was no more hereditary spell coming at me, which the guy with Ghostly Guard was just brown trousering every turn because of that. So that the Ghostly Guard guy was just... Obviously, the guy with Demon's Bane was in heaven because everything has magic. The guy with Ghostly Guard is just crying in the corner. But... I decided here to take the approach of trying to win this flank objective by killing this Hall Thresher. So I tried to soften that up. Hugo rolled pretty good on ward saves, though. I think I only managed 2, maybe 3 wounds in 2 magic and shooting phases on this thing. On the flip side, he did keep letting me have the hereditary spell because he was scared of the divine ice and fire. So as a result, his own magic phases didn't actually manage to kill or damage my Eagle and Griffon hero, who, as you can see, basically jumped into the middle to start zoning him out here. So, and like these lemurs just never even made it to the central objective. They were so scared of the Griffon going in and just killing all of his harbingers one at a time, which was just a dream come true because this is a 500 point model. This is like a 800 point unit that didn't grab the objective in the end. So it just, there was gold. No disrespect to Hugo, who I think actually played really, really well. Played the best of all my opponents on the weekend. once these two, I think this is a turn where both of these threshing engines were quite badly damaged, and he decided, okay, they're probably dead next turn anyway, so I'm just going to try some crazy YOLO charges with them. So this one charged the Eagle Hero, pushed it to here. This one then charged it and pushed it to here. And if I'd gone a little bit further, then the Engine of Damnation could have actually pushed him off the table as well. I just happened to roll perfect distances, and the Eagle Hero ended up kind of in between my Bolt Thrower and my Griffon. And he then had a redirect on an 11 into my Archers, which would have been probably the end of the Archers and my Mage. And this Chariot had an 11 into my Griffon, which could have also been potentially bad with all his buffs. Fortunately, he didn't make either of those 11s because I didn't really consider that I had the option to flee here. I just thought it was, I don't know, maybe my Archers can flee this, actually. My Archers flee, end up here. But if I roll 10 or something, I go into line of sight of the engine, I just lose them off the table. So I decided to get the stand and shoot and just hope. I was very lucky in that both of these 11s failed. So meanwhile, I thought the most interesting part of the game was how I was going to try and win this objective over here. Bearing in mind I have no answer to this Engine of Damnation. And this Blazing Glory, I have no shooting to try to chip him or kill him on this flank, which was a great deployment by Hugo. Having this Blazing Glory out here was just an absolute nightmare. And very fortunately for me, Hugo, I don't know, had a brain fade or something, and around turn 3 or 4, this Blazing Glory decided to jump back in the middle here because my Eagles managed to find a blind spot and then flank charge this Threshing Engine. So the Blazing Glory came over to rescue them, which then let my Lancers sneak out of everyone's line of sight and grab this objective marker. So the Spearmen eventually killed this one on the left, and Hugo's all my flies were then not zoning him anymore. So the Brazen Beasts came out and grabbed the central objective, and very fortunately, I managed to shoot them dead to a man in the last phase of the game. But do I have any more pictures here? Yeah, here we go. So that's them grabbing that. That's the Spearmen just having killed the other staff. The Eagles are getting murdered by the Blazing Glory and the Threshing Engine now. And Hugo made another mistake here, which was this guy, as I said, is just really, really difficult for me to kill. And I think if I could have put him anywhere on the board to my advantage, it would have been right here in this forest within line of sight of my Griffon hero, because my Griffon is the only thing that can, 1, kind of tank his damage a bit, 2, actually do some wounds because of the strength 6 on the charge. And not only that, I got a flank charge, that's charge flank, that's +2 combat res, and in the forest he's not steadfast. So the Griffon actually fluffed massively and didn't do any wounds, but I still managed to pop 2 wounds on him with combat res. And then I stuck long enough for the Lion Chariot to come in and explode him. So that was a huge break for me. Hugo, I think, forgot that he was steadfast in the forest, and not steadfast in the forest. So I was just able to trap and get this guy here, whereas he could have easily prevented the Lancers from winning the mission, but he got a little bit carried away, I think, shooting the Eagles because they had no armor. So he was putting the breath weapon in there, he was using the volley gun on them. Again, I had no leadership support, so potentially he was fishing for an easy win on the panic test on them. But I would have been much, much more scared if this guy had, for instance, just blocked the Lancers and just tied this objective marker, or come down, kill my Bolt Thrower, and start threatening the rear of my Archers. That would have been hectic for me to try to manage. Ooh. And so I think this is the last picture of the game. It is. So I managed to win the objective, and even though a bunch of my stuff died, including the Frosty in turn 1 and the Eagles, I only managed to kill the engine, 1 Threshing Engine, and his Brazen Beasts. So it was pretty tight on points. And thanks to the objective, I managed to win 14-6 here. So lovely opponent, really, really tight with his movement as well. I appreciated that a lot from Hugo. It was just a really, really, really intense game. Worth mentioning as well, we were playing in a big tin shed. And even though it wasn't crazy hot outside for Queensland, probably like 29 degrees, I sweated, like physically sweated, like I've never sweat at a tournament before. It was unpleasant. So it was this one especially with those 22-inch charging threshing engines. I was standing there literally dripping, and spectator came over to the game. He's like, "Wow, you're really under pressure, huh, Bobo?" So in the end, I managed to place first in this tournament. Jamie got another big win in the last game and finished 3 points behind me. So and then another high off player who Hugo had 20'd in the first game managed to climb his way back up, scrapping, and actually finished third. So out of 22 players, we got 1, 2, and 3 high off players on the podium, which was pretty cool. Except for the fact that everyone thinks they're now OP and need to be nerfed into oblivion again. So, but the army was really awesome to play. I enjoyed it a lot. The challenge of playing no BSB was really eye-opening. I never played Cosmology before either. And that was another really interesting one for me. Unsure if 4 spells in Cosmology is enough, but the spell selection is really, really important. I had to have a good think about, do I actually want Ice and Fire, or do I actually want Altered Sight, or do I actually want Perception of Strength before each game? I think in 5 games, I don't know if I ever picked the exact same spells twice. A lot of thought went into what were going to be the most appropriate things each time. But yeah, it was just really lovely to play. All these mixed elements, Highborn Lancers. I like them a lot. I haven't played them for like 3 years, but it was just refreshing to have them on the table again. The 30 inches from the Archers versus the traditional 24 inches from the Sea Guard was pretty cool. And the single Lion Chariot, I never used one of those before, but he's very punchy for his points. I thought he was very interesting. And the Eagles themselves, I mean, obviously everyone's probably wondering, like, okay, what about the commander on the Eagle, who no one in the history of ever has played? And what about the unit of 5 Eagles that only madmen play? And like the Eagles were good, they're fine, and I found that pretty unremarkable compared to the rest of the list. Like they fill an important role, which is like this laterally mobile flying wound pool that can shield stuff and charge stuff and chaff stuff. But I don't know. I wouldn't go writing any sonnets about them. The Eagle Hero, on the other hand, he was really cool. Like the power of a mobile 2+ armor save for under 300 points is definitely noteworthy. I tried drafting up the 4,500 point version of this list and ended up with 3 Eagle Heroes, because clearly, if something is good, you should take as many as you can. But I guess the real disappointment for me was the Frost Phoenix in this list. Even though he did a lot of good work, I think, and I don't think it's his fault necessarily. I think 3 games against the Dark Elves, against the Warriors, and against this Demon army, the dice on this Frost Phoenix were just mad and just got obliterated where he had no business doing so. That being said, he still did a really important work in all of my games, including cleaning up an entire flank against the Ogre Kingdoms. I guess here he ate the magic missile that could have killed anything, so better him than them. I don't know. But I've played another game since this tournament with him, and his output against anything that he can't stomp against, and even Res 4 stuff that he can stomp against, is just really, really sad. So he's he's a big blue bullet magnet, and by the way, mine, you can see mine is horrifically blue. This is not finished. Don't judge me. This is I was up until 2 a.m. painting all these eagles before the tournament. So he got a basic double dry brush and then an ink wash and a fancy tree on his base. And then I'm like, yep, that's enough. I should also sleep before this event. So this is the eventual vision. He's going to get some cool frostiness. So that's pretty much it from me, guys. I don't have anything else here. It's not the results. So yes, you can all stop clamoring, and I hope you enjoyed the report. There'll be more soon. And yeah, stay safe.